because you are ready to change does not mean your child is ready to change. What is up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new. My name is Ashley, and today's video is going to be about that, like step 1 to Parents Towards Progress. Like, how do you make the parenting change once you kind of understand the tactics and what you should do, the positive parenting, you know? I'm gonna go ahead and say that I was going to film an entire video on what I personally was doing, and I think I still will film that video, but if I could sum up the entire video that I was going to make in one sentence, it's everything kind of begins with you. It starts with you. And so most of the work has to be done with yourself, not just your approach, but your emotions, your thoughts. You have to work on yourself internally. And I remembered there was a section in the Montessori Toddler. This talks about like setting up the home. Don't be biased on Montessori, Waldorf, for whatever you say it. Positive parenting, conscious parenting, love and logic, whatever. Don't put a title to your kid. Just be open-minded. This book just talks about like setting up the home and giving them a thriving environment. And then it has a section talking about being the adult. And when I started going through the section, I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I was doing. So it's just really cool to know that everything I was doing was something I was supposed to be doing. You know, that confirmation, the reassurance. So the very first thing is we are not aiming to be perfect parents. When I tried to be or appeared to be a perfect parent, I was stressed and disconnected from my family, busy worrying about everything. Rather, we aim to have fun and feel relaxed with our family starting from where we are today. I really like the don't aim to be perfect because that sets up your child for unrealistic expectations of what life is supposed to be. A lot of times we put expectation on our kids of perfection. We expect our kids to act good all the time, and when they're not, we're like, oh my gosh, like what the heck, you know? The book goes into that a little bit more into this chapter, which I'll go into a little bit deeper there. And then physical self-care as the adult. We do our best when we keep our bodies, our minds, and our souls strong and healthy. To nurture our families, we must also nurture ourselves. And how I was going to sum that up is that you cannot pour from an empty cup. That is why I make the time to work out every day for at least 10 minutes a day. Just if I do not take the time to get in my exercise that day, throughout the rest of the day, I cannot put more time and more energy into my kids, because when I work out, my days are more productive, I'm happier, I have more energy, like everything is just better when I take those 10 minutes for myself. And it wasn't immediate. Don't think that. None of this is immediate. This is all lifestyle kind of stuff. If you want to make long-term change, you have to put a long-term commitment to it. I noticed after I was working out consistently that I had more energy all day, every day. I like to say that 10 minutes of consistent workout daily adds up to more than the occasional big workouts. But we will also go into the pour from an empty cup a little bit later. We don't undertake any paid job without some training. We expect our child's school teachers to continue their professional development. So as a parent, we need to keep learning too. And I really like that because it talks about reading. Like, you watching this video is taking personal development. I made a video recently on why reading is so important. I'll put a link up here. And how personal development is really just crucial. Some ideas that you can learn about is learn about our child's unique development, research things, which by the way, I have my top 5 parenting books coming out in my next video. Research the things that are different about our child and get the support we need for our specific child. Find a training with positive discipline training or a course of nonviolent communication, and then read and learn things that have absolutely nothing to do with raising kids. You just need to develop your own personal self. There's actually a quote in here that says, "The child developing harmoniously and the adult improving himself at his side make a very exciting and attractive picture." Which we'll go into later, but it kind of shows like modeling for your kids. The best way to teach your kids isn't by sitting down and talking to them, it's showing them. So if you expect your kids to develop themselves into this, amazing creature, you should be developing yourself as well. So the morning and evening routine. My morning and evening rituals probably have the biggest effect on how I show up as a parent. It's not strict, but it's fairly consistent most days. It helps me be intentional about how I live each day rather than reacting to what life throws at me. And I really like that because I remember my most stressful morning routine was probably the most stressful time of my life was whenever I had a 2.5-year-old and a newborn and a dog. And it was like as soon as I woke up, the 2.5-year-old had to go to the bathroom, the newborn needed a diaper change, needed to be nursed. I was breastfeeding at the time. I had to let the dogs outside, and Fidel was probably going to be going to work soon, so I had to get breakfast for him and coffee. And then, if a 2.5-year-old sees you making breakfast, you're gonna be making breakfast for her. And of course you have to eat still, but you're still nursing. So it was just like, oh, and then don't forget I have to pee. So it was like, as soon as I woke up in the morning, everyone needed something from me, and that was so stressful. And so I really like how it says it helps me be intentional. It helps me be intentional about how I live each day rather than just reacting to what life throws at me, because I think I have lived many morning routines where I was 100% reacting to everything life threw at me. And then she talks about at the end of the day, it's actually interesting because she doesn't talk about any sort of evening routine with the kids. She talks about her evening routine, so I really like that. But she says at the end of the day, I like to take a bath and read a book. I write down 3 amazing things that happened and an intention for the next day. And that kind of sparked an idea for me. You know how at the end of the day, like it's stress all day long. You get the kids in bed and you're like, oh my gosh. And then you look at pictures on your phone of what happened that day and you're like, oh my gosh. And you just have a whole different feeling about that day. I think it would be kind of interesting if every single night you got to write down some affirmations of gratitude, and then the following morning rewriting them, reliving the happiness that you experienced, not the stress that you're about to experience. And the more and more you do that, the more and more you will find happiness in your day. I think I want to try that. Leave in the comments down below if you want to do that, because it could be a thing. It's difficult to stay present when we are trying to be all things to all people, being pulled in all directions as adults with lots of commitments, including parenting. I love that sentence right there, because that resonates with me so much. I don't think I've actually ever heard another parent say that they have been being pulled in all directions. If I could sum up my stress, it's that I am being pulled in all directions. I don't even want to go into it. Getting stressed just thinking about it. So calm the mind. It's really hard to get into the here and now. We continue playback moments from the past and make plans for the future. We make ourselves crazy. Right now, here in the present moment, there's absolutely nothing to worry about. And I know that sounds hard, but imagine this. You have yourself. You have to make dinner. You have to clean the house. You have to get the kids ready for bed. You have to clean up the mess that they're making right now. You have to do all of these things. That's all in the future. Even though it is in the very near future, it's not in the here and now. The mess that was made that you have to clean up, neither of those are in the here and now. So if you could just collect yourself and you're in the past, you're in the future, bring it in, there's absolutely no worries. And I know that sounds insane, but think about it. If you're thinking of what you have to get done because of what was done before, neither of those are in the moment. There are no worries in the moment. Ain't no worries for the rest of your days. Hakuna Matata. Imagine if we could spend more time in that peaceful space. With practice, we can. I heard a thing during my workout the other day that says you can find calm during the chaos. And that was really eye-opening to hear, because I was in the middle of a workout and I felt like it was intense. I felt like it was go, we're working out, blah, blah, blah. And then she goes, you can still be calm in this moment of chaos. And I was like, that's true. I don't have to have such a stressed, racing, like heart beating. I mean, I know my heart's gonna be beating because I'm working out, but like it doesn't have to be beating like so insane anxiety way, you know? Like I realized how stressed I was during my workouts, and I could calm myself in moments of chaos. That was just a huge eye-opener for me. The more we practice making space for these moments, the easier it is for us to slow down, observe our child, and see things from their perspective. The more time we have finding a calm space inside ourselves, the easier it'll be to return to that space when we need to be a calm leader for our child if they're having a hard time. And then that kind of leads into observation. So we make factual observations at home to allow us to let go of our judgment bias and other analysis. Removing our judgment from the situation stops us from being triggered by our child's behavior, allows us to respond rather than react. If we feel wound up, grab a notebook and just observe. Like just write down, stay away from analysis, and enjoy looking at the present moment, observing your child. So this is something I have been doing recently, and it usually makes me laugh, where you can just like come back to the present moment. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to, have anything done, just where you just come back to the present moment. And sometimes it helps if you actually take a picture of your child. Leave the situation, come back to the present moment, and then look at that picture. Usually, when I see a picture of like my 4-year-old or even my 2-year-old having a hard time, I see the entire scenario different when I am out of the situation looking at a picture. Like a lot of times I'll just start busting up laughing, thinking like she was in her own world. Like she was so determined to make that sandcastle, and I almost start laughing a little bit because it's so silly, like I don't know, it's just, if we could observe our child without being emotionally attached, I think we could respond differently. So try the picture method and let me know how it works. Energy in versus energy out. This is kind of back to that empty cup thing I was talking about, like you can't pour from an empty cup. Our emotional bucket needs to be continuously refilled. When we neglect our emotional buckets, we become more reactive. We are responsible for filling our own buckets, for finding ways to look after ourselves and make sure we are receiving the help and support we need. With creativity, we can come up with lots of ways to fill our buckets. Now, this is also something that I was practicing in a different term, not necessarily an emotional bucket, but an energetically bucket. So something I realized that drains me is when I'm constantly getting interrupted. As a stay-at-home mom with 2 toddlers, that happens a lot. And so I set a boundary for myself that says when I get interrupted 3 times, I'm gonna stop and bring energy back in. So I made a list of things that drain my energy and a list of things that seem to refuel my energy. And I labeled them kind of on a scale 1 through 10. And if I do something that's an energy out, that's like, let's say it's a 6, like a level 6, I need to do something that is minimum level 6 on my refill bucket. Does that make sense? So it's like energy in versus energy out. Massive, massive, massive energy management. I think I'm gonna make an entire video on it, but tell me if that made sense. When we have our emotional buckets full, it's easier to fill our child's bucket. The easiest way to fill our child's bucket is with connection, making them feel like they belong, significant, and accepted. This fills our child's emotional bucket and helps them be more receptive and less reactive throughout the day. And that brings me back to where it says that if we could put our phone down, like don't hold our phone, like if our child's trying to tell us something and we're in the middle making dinner, don't like talk to your child with your back towards them. Like give 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds. Just acknowledge them, see what they need, give them your 100% attention, and then move on to something else. Something I have been wanting to do is, instead of doing dishes while listening to an audible book and talking to my child and, being pulled in this direction, instead of trying to do everything at once, I want to give 100% of my attention to each individual thing. Whenever you spend intentional quality time with your kid, at that point you can spend less time with them. Not that spending less time with them is what you need, but it feels like on a connection basis, if you spent less quality time with them, it would be more than a whole bunch of unquality time. Slow down. Going slow is a tool that we can use in our daily life to make things more easier with our toddler children and other family. Slowing down for me is making a cup of tea when I come home rather than immediately jumping on my innumerable tasks, and not to put too many things on my calendar so I don't have to rush from one thing to the next. So basically, like, the second you get home, think about what it's like. It's like hectic, it's insane. But if you came home and you made yourself a cup of tea and you sat down and then you got up and did those things, that would be more enjoyable. Life would be just a little bit more peaceful. And if there's anything in here that you're saying, I can't, turn that around to say, how can I? I promise you can find a way. Toddlers will appreciate our slower pace. It makes things easier for them to absorb the things around them. Think about children. We are really, really stressed out being pulled in all of these directions all the time. So imagine our child just trying to live their life and us being stressed out, go, 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 go. And they're like, you need to chill. Like, your kid can enjoy their life whenever you are running around like a chicken with your head cut off, not enjoying your own life. Was that a Texas term? Running around like crazy. Unless our child is in immediate danger, there is genuinely enough time to at least count to 3 in our head before reacting to any situation. It allows us to respond and not react. Our children learn more from watching us than us telling them how to behave. So we want to model ourselves to our children. We can also model accepting responsibility for our choices to our children, commenting out loud when we run into a frustrating problem. So I had kind of mentioned that earlier, that modeling to your kid, they learn better through seeing you act. So I have a bunch of parents that say things like changing their parenting ways is really hard because like they'll slip up and they will still yell at their kids, they'll still spank their kids, they'll slip back into their old ways. And the absolute best thing to do is, she says, I'm so sorry, I should not have blank. What I should have said or done is blank. So making mistakes means that we have opportunities to apologize. So think about what we have done instead. This sets a far stronger example for our child than blaming someone else. They can see us learning from our mistakes, and it teaches them to learn from their mistakes as well. Nobody is perfect, not even a parent. We can take out all of the shoulds out of our life and only do the things that we want to do. So I should iron the shirt, I should cook for the children, I should call her back, I should pay more attention to my children. This may seem like I'm advising against cooking dinner or paying attention to your children. Rather, I'm saying we cook for our dinner because we want to provide a nutritious home. Cook dinner for our children. Own up to our choices. I'm saying we pay attention to our children because we want them to grow up feeling secure and accepted. Own that too. So that's her way of saying it. So I like to turn it around and say I get to. So I have a time management video that I want to create where basically you create 3 MITs, but you schedule them. So let's say you have a workout to do at 7 a.m. You have lunch at noon and dinner at 5:30. If those are the 3 things you want to schedule, so be it. Then you look at your blocks of time between those three things and you say, okay, now I get to do the dishes, I get to put a load of laundry, and I get to do this. And instead of seeming like you have to do those things, it starts to become an opportunity. I get to do these things. So treat these scheduled things like a doctor's appointment, and then celebrate where we are. We can get so busy trying to improve things that we forget to reflect on the present. I know that I forget to acknowledge and accept where I'm at right now while I'm striving to learn more and do better for my child. We are enough. We are doing our best. I like to imagine that we are all full glasses of water. That gives me a huge relief because it doesn't mean that I will stop learning and stop improving, but that makes me feel like I'm okay with who I am today. That means I can be more on those days in my life and include my children. And I like to think of our toddlers as full glasses too. They're doing the best they can in their little bodies where they are today. We can support them without getting frustrated or angry at them. I heard a story in an Audible book recently that this little child banged his head on the table, started screaming, and this woman had yelled across the restaurant and was like, can you shut that kid up? And the whole restaurant was like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with that lady, blah, blah, blah. And the people who had wrote the book were sitting at the table next to them, and they had realized that they were going through a divorce. So her version of snapping at that kid who had just hurt himself and was crying, she was doing the best she could in that moment, even though it wasn't what we would all like to see. From where she was at in her emotional state, that was the absolute best she could. And so I like to use the example that even if you yell at your kids, you did the best you can without stepping away, without recollecting yourself, without counting to 3. Yes, maybe if you counted to 3 before you reacted, you would have responded differently, but you didn't do that. So with the scenario you have right now, you did the best you could. And our kids are doing the same thing. Our brains are significantly more developed than theirs. With the brains they have, with the environment we have given them, with the history we have raised them on, they're doing the best they can too. Last but not least, she says, keep practicing. All the ideas in this book will take practice. Being this way with our child is like learning a new language, and it takes a whole lot of practice, but it does get easier and more natural every day. And I want to share a little story to close out on my aspect of just because you are ready to change does not mean your child is ready to change. You have to remember that your child is their own person just like you are. It took you a moment where you decided I was going to change, and so it's going to take them a moment where they change, and sometimes we still go back on that. The story is whenever I decided I was going to start connecting with my daughter's emotions and acknowledging the way she feels and trying to make her happy. When I decided to make that change, we were going to a public pool. When she got out, I started to tell her it was time to go, and she said no, and she screamed and she ran back into the pool. She was kicking and screaming. I also had a 2-year-old with me. I was pregnant at the time. I still am. It was a really hard situation. She would not get out of the pool. I wasn't even in a swimsuit. So I literally got on my knees, held my 2-year-old over here, reached in the water, and dragged her out of the pool. And she went to the car kicking and screaming. In the public pool, she was like, let go of me, like flip out, okay? And I kept telling her, I was like, Sage, if you just would have told me that you were upset to get out, that we didn't have to stop having fun. We could have just changed the fun. You know, I understand you were wanting to have fun. You don't want to stop having fun, but I know you like this song. We could have had a dance party on the way to the car. So I tried to explain to her, I was like, Sage, if you just would have told me that you were upset to get out of the pool, I would have changed the fun, not stopped having fun. And of course there was consequences for what she did. She lost her TV and tablet for 3 days. And every single time for those 3 days, she got reminded of what happened. Now keep in mind, I'm also one of those warning parents. So you have 5 minutes, you have 3 minutes, you have 2 minutes, you have 1 minute. Let's go. So because of that, you know, losing her TV and tablet for 3 days, she now remembers whenever we go somewhere, when I say it's time to go, she doesn't want to, but she at least talks to me. You know, we work something out. But back then I was telling her, I was like, why didn't you just talk to me? Like, I was like, I'm ready to deal with your emotions now. Why couldn't you just tell me your emotions? You know, like I was getting so irritated. And then it just dawned on me, for the past 4 years, if we would have gotten out of that pool and she told me I'm upset to get out of this pool, I was having a lot of fun, I wouldn't have acknowledged her emotions. I would have said, that sucks, like we gotta go, we can't stay here forever. You know, that would have been me. I would have been like, too bad, so sad, we gotta go. You know, like I haven't laid a foundation for her to talk to me about her emotions yet. So when it comes to practicing, please, 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 please do not set the expectation on your child that they're ready to change just because you are. And I also would love to see someone else do this. I didn't do this, but it would be very smart to sit down with your child and tell them what your plans are. Hey, Sage, I'm sorry I haven't talked to you about your emotions in the past. I haven't acknowledged your emotions. I actually want you to be happy. So if you're ever upset, I want you to come talk to me so I can make you happy again. Maybe you won't get that thing, but I could make you happy in another way. you know? So that's just where I'm gonna close off at. I think I wanna make a part 2 of this video where I talk more specific things that I did specifically with Sage, like more of the parenting tactics that I was like more hands-on doing. I think that's what I'm gonna do. So if you wanna see that video, give this video a thumbs up so I know you liked it, and I will see you in that video. Bye.